The moment my tablet slid across the mahogany table, I knew my career at the firm was over. A grainy security image showed me walking into a competitor headquarters late last Thursday evening. It was not definitive proof of anything criminal, but the executives had already reached their verdict before I even sat down. Bennett looked at me with cold eyes while explaining that my outside activities violated our strict employment agreement. Next to him, Vance let out a small sneer that revealed his complete satisfaction with my sudden downfall. They told me that the organization maintained zero tolerance for this kind of betrayal, expecting me to break down or beg for my position. Instead of panic, a strange feeling of weightlessness washed over me as Bennett handed over the official termination paperwork. Security waited by the door to escort me out of the building like a criminal. I simply nodded, telling them they were right about my need to focus on just one path moving forward. If you want to see how this ultimate corporate payback unfolds, take a quick second to subscribe to the channel right now. Drop a comment below letting me know which country you are watching this video from today. Trust me, you do not want to miss the absolute chaos that hit them exactly 72 hours later. For 3 long years, I had survived as the solitary network defense architect for a massive financial institution. The budget cuts had slowly eliminated my entire department until I was the only person keeping their multi-billion-dollar infrastructure online. I never wanted to be irreplaceable, but the corporate leadership refused to hire replacements while my duties multiplied daily. As the guard watched me pack my single ceramic mug and a dying desk plant, my colleagues whispered in the hallways. Harrison, our vice president of technology, watched from his glass office without saying a single word to defend me. He knew better than anyone that the entire digital fortress was resting solely on my shoulders. The crisp afternoon air hit my face as I walked out of the corporate lobby for the final time. My phone buzzed with a message from Roxanne, the head of security at our main rival company, asking if we were still on for our afternoon meeting. I replied instantly that I could now accept her incredible full-time job offer. 2 months earlier, I had spoken at a national tech conference where Roxanne noticed my advanced security models. She offered me a weekend advisory role helping them design their new framework, completely outside of my regular operational hours. It was strictly theoretical work that did not violate any non-compete clauses, but it paid more than my main salary. What my former employers failed to understand was that their massive system required specialized weekly manual adjustments to survive. I had spent 18 months begging Harrison for resources to train others, but the leadership always deprioritized my requests. Now, a massive data spike was approaching due to the end of the fiscal quarter. On Monday morning, I started my new role as the chief security architect at the headquarters of Roxanne. The environment was completely different from my old job, featuring a beautifully lit office and genuine professional respect. They provided me with a dedicated team of 8 brilliant specialists who genuinely wanted to collaborate and learn from my expertise. By Monday afternoon, the first major warning signs began appearing within the infrastructure of my previous employer. Without my manual overrides, the weekly authentication cycles began to bottleneck and stall. I knew the log files were overflowing, which would inevitably trigger a massive system slowdown across their entire consumer platform by the next morning. Harrison called my personal phone late Monday evening, leaving a casual voicemail about a minor configuration issue on their authentication servers. By Tuesday afternoon, the tone of the messages changed drastically when Claire from the executive office reached out desperately. The corporate leadership was suddenly authorizing massive consulting fees if I would return to fix the crisis. Wednesday afternoon brought the exact catastrophic failure that I had warned the board about for several years. Their entire client database locked up entirely during the peak hours of quarterly transaction processing. The news networks began broadcasting reports of a historic technical outage, and the stock value of the firm began to plummet rapidly. My phone vibrated continuously until I finally answered a call from a completely broken Harrison at 2 in the afternoon. He pleaded for instructions, telling me that the entire transaction layer was collapsing and nobody knew how to stop it. I reminded him calmly that I had provided the exact disaster recovery documentation a year ago. Later that day, the chairman of the board, Sterling, called me directly after firing Bennett and Vance for their incompetence. He told me to name my price, so I demanded an unprecedented $50,000 per hour with very specific conditions. I demanded a public letter of apology, extended severance for my old team, and remote work. After they wired the advance payment and signed the agreement, I spent 4 hours guiding their remaining technicians over a video call. I did not access their systems directly, but instead explained the deep context behind the recovery steps that they had ignored for months. By Wednesday evening, their core authentication flows were finally stabilizing. The public apology appeared in the business section the following morning, proving to the industry that my warnings were validated. Roxanne was so impressed by my handling of the crisis that she authorized me to launch an entirely new corporate security consulting division. We quickly hired 20 new specialists to help other vulnerable corporations protect their digital assets. A month later, Sterling sent an email detailing the permanent cultural changes that my intervention had forced upon their organization. They had fully funded the security architecture I proposed and instituted mandatory reviews for all internal technical documentation. Though their market value suffered greatly, they finally learned to value the human beings behind their technology. Now, I stand on the main stage of the National Cybersecurity Conference as a leader of an industry-wide movement. Looking out at the crowd, I see my old manager listening closely to my presentation on operational resilience. The ultimate victory was not watching their system fail, but showing them exactly what they lost when they refused to listen.